make sure we go on. All right. Sometimes it takes a moment to do it up. All right. Okay. Well, Andrew, it's so good to see you today. And thank you for joining me. And welcome everyone who is joining us today for this particular parenting tip. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Karen Wagner. I am a mom, a stepmom, a Nina, as well as a parent coach. And I'm so looking forward to what we're going to be sharing today and introduce you to my friend, Andrew Weingart. Those of you who are joining us live, if you are able to, click the link above this video that says streamyard.com/Facebook. That allows Facebook to access your profile. So then when you are commenting throughout our podcast today, I'll be able to respond back to you and not just see a little bubblehead that says, Facebook user. So come on in and do that. Let me know you are here. I see a couple people have joined us already. Introduce yourself. Let me know you are here and let me know where you're coming in from today, because this is going to be just a great talk to really help us to better understand what's going on in the teen mind. So Andrew is actually a life coach. He is a mentor to teens. He actually uses mindfulness strategies to help teens build their self-esteem and confidence. And I know with a lot of parents that I do work with, it's one of the things that they really have concerns that, especially going through pandemic and through the teen years, that their children are really struggling with their self-esteem and confidence. Things really kind of got flatlined. So let me know if you are here. Sign in and put your name in the comments so we can engage you in the conversation. So Andrew, tell us maybe a little bit about yourself before I have a couple questions I want to ask you to kind of dig in a little deeper. So how did you get involved with mentoring teens and being a life coach?
Yeah, well, at first I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here and to share with everybody, all the parents. Hello, welcome. How I got into this is actually I started my own journey of healing my physical body, and I hope it doesn't continue raining. It just started raining, so I started to heal my physical body. I played sports in high school, and my body got so out of whack, and I lost so much desire and motivation to even like get out of bed and play sports, which was my favorite thing to do in life. And so I finally found yoga. I started healing my own physical body. Then I started to realize yoga is much more than just the physical body, and started to discover meditation and starting to get more in touch with myself. If you believe in spirit or God, I started to feel this deeper knowing of myself and who I was, and I really started to regain my confidence. And it's through that journey and through my journey of going through a course called Gratitude Training, which is all about personal development. It's kind of like Landmark, if you've ever heard of Landmark, or LifeSpring. So I went through that, and I just fell in love with, and I came back to coach. I volunteered to coach at the Gratitude Training multiple times, and through that coaching and seeing people transform their lives, I mean, I'd be crying as I'm seeing other people transform their lives. And so that was really where I developed this passion to help people. Then one day it hit me where I just was like, whoa, if I had these tools and techniques when I was 12, when I can first remember actually like getting bullied to the point where I still can like tap into that feeling today of, that feeling in my heart. I said, wow, if I had that, I wouldn't have lost my sense of who I was. I wouldn't have went down the wrong path of getting involved with friends who were stealing from me and things like this.
Wow.
So through that, I said, and I have always also believed that, one, as a teen, I always felt that my voice was never heard, not only by my parents, because they always thought they were right about everything. Not that any parents here do that.
No, we don't do that.
Yeah, but also, for example, like teachers or adults, and it's just there's this level of like, well, we know better than you. You're too young to understand yet. And that really, I really want to provide a platform for teens, because I think teens, especially now, I believe that as we evolve as a species, each next generation is going to be more evolved. That's why kids understand technology much better than, adults do, and these types of things. So the kids are our future. And so if we can learn to empower them and provide them with a voice and to say, you can do it. And really sometimes it's not even like, of course, I would say 99% of parents do want their teens to be this type of teen who grows up to be, very creative and independent and has it all together. The issue is that as parents, we don't understand what is happening hormonally, biologically within our bodies as we go through adolescence. So we're doing what we think is best, of course, with great intention, but then it's not working. And as parents, we're like, oh no, what do I do? I'm doing everything that I think is right, and then it's not working. And so, sometimes it could just be a simple understanding on both ages of teen and adult, and then how do we work through that? And a lot of it, what I've discovered is understanding yourself, right? Not only as a teen, but also as a parent. And then once we understand and we're so secure in who we are, we can go into our lives and say, you know what, I can easily talk to my mom, or I can easily talk to my teen because I know who I am and I don't have this insecurity or this fear of abandonment that I've developed through, my childhood. And one thing I do want to say, and I know I'm getting a little long-winded, but to wrap it up is to say that I have so much compassion for parents because conscious parenting, right, this term, wasn't really introduced until 2010 by this psychologist, and I have her name right here, Dr. Shefali Tisvari. And so, right, so your parents clearly weren't aware of what conscious parenting was. So you just got the best job that they knew what was right?
Yep.
So of course, you probably also aren't conscious parents, and now you're finally getting into it. So if you weren't raised consciously, right, obviously there's traumas and patterns and these types of things that are being brought into your life as well, which is being, reflected and mirrored to the child, and then that's creating these results as well. And so I'm not here to sit here and say I'm blaming you. What I'm inviting you to is to have compassion for yourself and understanding that, you are doing the best that you can with the knowledge that you have. And there's gonna be a reparenting process of yourself. I would say that that's my bonus introduction tip. That's not even my first tip that I would say. And I'm just gonna move this thing right here. Hold on 1 second because
No worries. No worries.
So I would say that would be my first introductory tip of like, that's most important for you as a parent is to exercise compassion for yourself and then do the work on yourself, reparent yourself, which means being mindful of what actions are you having, especially if you can catch it in the moment, which is something sort of like a train thing. If you have sort of like ADHD like I did, it was hard for me to realize, what am I doing in this moment? But as I started to practice these mindfulness techniques like meditation and getting present to my breath and these types of things that I teach, it's so much easier now for me to see. I become the observer. I step back in conversation and I see, oh crap, I realize that I'm doing this, which is causing this person to react this way. Or I realize I'm not doing anything. The other person is doing something, but I can get present to how they are being, and then I can ask myself, what is being called forth of me? What is the lesson that is being taught to me? Is it to exercise patience? Is it to listen? So these are the types of things that I would invite each parent to do.
That is so good. And, and a lot of the things that I share is it just kind of mirrors what you talked about. Is all we bring into our parenting is our personality and how we were parented in the past. And so that's all we know. And so even though we may say we want to do things differently, the only tapes in our head is our previous experiences. And that's where we will default to, unless we are intentional, which is my word, intentional about new strategies to replace. And that whole mindfulness and the meditation, having worked in the school for many years, I'm starting to see that they are bringing meditation into kids because they just need to be able to know how to settle and to breathe and to have that mindfulness and that consciousness. So Andrew, when you first start working with teens, when teens start first come to you, what do you find? And I'm not saying that this is a broad brush, but what do you find are more of the common challenges that you see that they are facing that you need to work on when they first come to work with you?
Yeah, so I would definitely say confidence is one of the biggest things that I hear teens tell me over and over and over. And that can come from a variety of different things. Self-esteem. I think one of the biggest things that I hear that teens complain about with their parents specifically is that they don't feel heard, which was a big thing with me growing up. Because my mom was she was raised by a military father, and so this is the way you do it. This is correct. This is right. And like that's just based off of one person's perspective and opinion. If we all had the same perspective and opinion, there would be peace on earth, or we'd all be dead or something. But it's not. We're all unique and different. So for me to try to express my own opinion and then not feel heard and like, no, you should do it this way is better, started to actually make me feel less confident, and I was less creative, and I was less independent, right? And so
You feel
now,
suppressed. You feel suppressed
right,
at that point. You basically feel suppressed. So
correct.
yes, that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
So, right, look, I think we have Cassandra joining us, and Cassandra is actually a Parenting Blueprint client. So Cassandra, I'm glad you were able to sign on, and we have someone else here. And I don't know Facebook user, if you're able to click that StreamYard.com, I'd be able to address you by name. But they said that I started meditation before baby number 1, and it was great. So they're already beginning to practice that mindfulness. And those of you who are already doing it, then it's easier for you to kind of be able to transmit that to your kids as well, because it's a part of what you do and a part of your lifestyle. So I know, Andrew, you had 3 tips that you wanted to share. Oh, it's Michelle. All right. Yes. All right. Hi, Michelle. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I think, Andrew, you may know Michelle from some of the other groups. So I'm glad that you're able to join us today, Michelle. So yeah. So what are some of the things that you feel are the 3 tips that you wanted to share with parents today? Just a couple of things that might give them some hope in ways that they can better connect with their kids.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many different things, right, that we can touch on. There's endless, and as I was creating this list, I was like, man, I have like 40. But number one, the first thing I want to focus on is to allow them to develop their own self-identity.
Right.
I think it's very important, and a lot of psychologists, adolescent psychologists, have discovered that this is the most prevalent thing. What are we doing as teens? What is the question that we're trying to answer? The question that we're trying to answer is, who am I? Right? And so we're in this discovery. Hold on 1 second. I got an umbrella here. Thank you. You're going to hold it. Okay.
See, you're in sunny Florida. I'm not feeling bad for you because it's 45 degrees with sideways snow. I mean, 45 mile-an-hour winds with sideways snow this morning. So, but you dodge your raindrops, okay? No, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, to allow them to develop their own self-identity. And some of the things that I would invite you as parents to do is to start to allow them to have some say in the matter, right? Of course, you don't want to let them like, so I'm going to go out and drink and not come home tonight, right? That's excessive. But for example, if you have their bedtime at 8 o'clock and they're like, well, I want to stay up till 11. Now you start to negotiate with them. You say, well, how's 9, right? And so, or you can even ask them. It's best to ask them and let them have the final say. So it's empowering them to feel that they have this power, they have this say, they have this independence. So I just wanted to read something here by Eric Erickson, and he's a well-known psychologist in adolescent development. And he says the main social task of the adolescent is the search for the unique identity, the ability to answer the question, who am I? In the search for identity, the adolescent may experience role confusion, in which he or she is balancing or choosing among identities, taking on negative, undesirable identities, or temporarily giving up looking for an identity altogether if things are not going well. Which is really important to talk about because the second leading cause of death in teens, it says 13 to 24 is suicide. It's suicide. And it's because they're never allowed to develop and discover their self-identity. And so I realized what happens is that parents, they get scared that if they just let their teens go and develop their own self-identity, that they're going to lose them, that they're going to go down the wrong path, that they're going to find the wrong people, be influenced, and then who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
So it's this constant like push and pull in this situation that's happening. And so I get it. I have lots of compassion for you. It's this surrender that needs to happen, but also this understanding and this like, how can I prepare myself? What are the tools I can utilize to prepare myself so that I can allow my teen to be independent but also be independent and be guided in a way that is going to lead them down the path that they need, and I can surrender at the same time. So go ahead.
I love that, to develop their self-identity, because we know that's what's happening. But so many parents get fearful when that identity doesn't align with their vision of what they want for their child, right? So I know a lot of parents, they want their kids to be successful. Well, what does successful look like to you? It may look different to you than it does to your child. I mean, many people who work with me know my daughter's a dancer. She went to college to dance. Now, look, I can't carry an 8-step anywhere, and my daughter's going to college to dance. And so I'm sitting there thinking, what do you do with that? But you know what? She found her way. She found her passion. She loves to perform. Who was I to say you should be a banker? You should go into business, and that's when kids start to feel misunderstood, because we start putting constraints on what we think they should do rather than let them develop and unfold and bloom into the people that they were meant to be. Parent by Design is personality, passion, and purpose. How can we help them? So I love that, letting them develop their self-identity and walking alongside as this is unfolding them. Take interest in the things they're interested in, helping them, maybe take it a step further. I was always into, what program, what summer program can you go to check this out, to see what you like. That's self-identity. And the dressing, the friends, all those things come with that self-identity. And that's when parents start to get a little sketchy. And so that's great. So what's number 2? I love that allowing the self-identity. What else you got? That was good.
Yeah, well, one of the other things I want to say just before to wrap that part up is that really as teens, what we want is we want acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgement of that we are mature, we are capable, and that we are valued as humans. Now, we probably aren't, right, like fully mature and fully capable of certain things, but how can we support the teen through this process without saying, no, you're not capable, without telling them what they need to do? Because the more when a child is younger, of course you need to tell them what to do. Don't cross the road, whatever. But now as you become an adolescent, though your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet, so you are still making risky behaviors and getting involved with things you probably shouldn't be. There is a sense of I need to allow my teen to go explore. And one of the biggest things I like to say is ask your teen questions. Not like questions like, hey, did you clean your room yet?
Right.
Because that then disempowers them to think that they're mature and capable to clean their room when you ask them to. But a question such as, hey, are you open to me supporting you in this moment? That one question alone could be used in so many different scenarios that instead of asking them a question like, hey, did you do this yet? Did you do that yet? Where you're like looking over them and overseeing them. And so it's like, how can I be a leader versus a manager, right? Because managers oversee, leaders lead by example. And so I think that's really important.
That is that statement was gold. Are you open to me supporting you, parents? I hope you're all writing that one down, because that is great. And I remember when my kids were, when I say my kids, it was me transitioning into parenting teens, right? I mean, we as parents need to make that shift. Asking my daughter, how can I be the best mom for you right now? Because I was struggling to try and find where my place was, that I wasn't irritating her and frustrating myself. So it was really having that question. So we've had a couple people hop on. So I just want to pull some of these up. And Jen, I'm glad you're here today. I'm glad you were able to make it. I know she's a Parenting Blueprint family as well. Tiffany says, I agree. My toddlers are teaching me a lot when I give them choices, but not necessarily teens, but appropriate development of self-identity is awesome. It is. It's allowing them to see who they're becoming. They're just very different beings, and they're going to have different passions and different interests. And when they don't align with us, and I also find the same thing with family values. Sometimes your kids may push away from your family values, and we start getting really nervous when they push away from their values. But they're going to go out and explore, as you were saying, right? You're going to say they're going out and explore, and then they may find that, that the safety net is the values. Parents, I just want to encourage you that the values that you are setting in those younger years are the values that they will most likely come back to. I know it's fearful. And Cassandra says, I'm guilty of that. I get nervous when my kids have a different opinion than me. Yeah, I know, Cassandra, we talk about that. And it is, it really can be scary. And I find a lot of parents who have their kids in church, they're raised in church, and all of a sudden they don't want to go to church, and parents start getting harder about that. Well, guess what you're going to do? You're going to push them away from church even harder if you make that a requirement and a demand. So it really is being able to allow them to experience some things and continue to guide them. Tiffany says, bloom, bloom, baby, bloom, self-actualizing. I love it, Tiffany. That is great. Now, Facebook user, I'm not sure who you are because I'm not able to see your name, but they say, what if they are trying to change their gender at 13? Or confused by gender? How do I make her feel heard without telling her I don't agree? I know she needs to figure it out, but it boggles my mind as to how all the kids are like that these days. So, Andrew, working with a lot of that younger generation, what are you seeing now? Because I am seeing the same thing as this Facebook user is, that there does seem to be a period of life where kids are experimenting and experiencing what they think they like. And my guide with parents, and forever, whatever it's worth, because I'm not trained in any of this, is they are going to know what they like as they get older.
Sure.
If they're a girl, they're going to know if they like to kiss a girl or like to kiss a boy. You know what I mean? So at some point, they're going to know what it is. If they are experimenting with it at this point, to not make a big deal of it. But she's got a point when they're wanting to change their gender. So what would you say to that statement?
Well, it's a very loaded question, and it's funny. I had a feeling that this question might come up. So ultimately, at the root of it, in my opinion, is a lack of understanding who you are as a person. Now, the one side note I want to say is as a parent, you can only do so much. It's definitely important to help guide them and understand, what are they watching, what are they getting into, because there's a lot of influence happening around people, from media, from different advertisements. And so number one is, how can I help support my teen be in an environment that's healthy for them, which is going to be part of my tip number 3. But how can I support them being in an environment that's healthy for them? And then how can I also support them in coming to know who they are, right? So the self-identity is huge. And I know I haven't really provided a solution yet. It's like, well, you told me to have them discover their self-identity, but what if they, like he's alluding to here, what if they discover this identity that they want to get a gender change, right? Or they're seeing the same sex. And so this is where building the self-identity is going to support them in understanding, is this something that I really align with, true deeply down into my core, into my soul, or is this something that I'm just being influenced by from other people, from things that I see, or maybe it's just there's this deep dissatisfaction and this deep, like, I don't have enough excitement in my life. And so what can I do to try to what's the next thing I can do, right? our subconscious mind is actually wired naturally to want the next thing. We constantly want more, more, more. So if we're bored of our life now, we're going to want something that's different, right?
Yes.
And so again, just doing the best that you can to help them
Right.
develop practices that are going to have them understand themselves more. And
Yes.
again, I didn't start this journey until I was 25, right? Of
Right.
like truly getting deep into who I really am. And that's why I'm bringing this to teens. And that's why I coach and support and have a program for teens, is because I want them to know who they are, right? As soon as possible.
Right.
So that
Right.
would be my biggest advice.
Yes. Yes, that was great. I hope that was helpful. Facebook user, I don't know who you are, but if you have any follow-up questions to that, please type that in so we can follow up with you. Maria says, "Hi, Karen. My son wants to change football teams. Do you think we should let him? He is has a very negative attitude towards team players. I want him to try to change his mindset about it." So I know you work with athletes as well. So I think that's a great question. So what do you have to say to Maria about that?
Sure. Let me just read it really quick because I was trying to talk to my umbrella holder
Okay.
here, my partner. So she says, my son wants to change football teams. Do you think we should let him? He has a very negative attitude towards players. I want him to try to change his mindset about it. Yeah. So this is what happens, right? Is teens start to not want to listen to their parents. And there's a quote here that I'm going to bring up, which I was going to read later on, but I'm going to read it now. And um, so it's by a psychologist in 1998 in his book. He wrote that whereas young children are most strongly attached to their parents, the important attachments of adolescents move increasingly away from parents and increasingly towards peers.
Yes.
So I think that's really important in this scenario because you you as a parent trying to convince him of anything and to change his attitude towards players or change his mindset is going to be an uphill battle, especially if there hasn't been that connection or transition from youth to adolescence and understanding and that like kind of harmony. Because now it's like, and if he doesn't understand it, right? So it's also important that the teen understands, hey, you're going through this. You know, your brain isn't fully developed. You're naturally going to have these things happening where you take risky. So if you're aware of it, now you can transform. But the first step to transformation is awareness. So first we need to have, your son be aware of what's happening and why he might be not getting along with team members or why he's
Right.
having these thoughts, right? And then we can have him shift that. Um,
Right.
but I mean, I don't want to say that it's not possible for parents to be able to help their teens shift and whatnot. But if you feel that you're getting resistance, there's definitely, one, biology at play, but two, maybe the communication is not, where it needs to be. So
Right.
I wouldn't say like, I mean, I'm not a parent, so I couldn't tell you what you should let him do or not. But I think just having a conversation with him, exploring why he wants to do
Why?
it.
Right.
Because listen, I wanted to quit soccer for 4 years and my mom was like, you can't quit in the middle of the season. Then she's like, I really think you should stick it out. You're good at it. And I, being the son who was just kind of like, oh, I want to make my parents happy. I'd give a little pushback, but then I would do what they wanted.
Right.
And yes, is there lessons in it to never quit and persistence and these types of things? Sure. But those 4 years of doing that, I could have had free time to explore something else that might be a passion or a hobby of mine now.
Right.
So I think really just weighing the pros and cons of like, what's the worst case scenario if he does change football teams? Is it really going to harm something? Maybe it has you traveling an extra 15 minutes. Is that something you're willing to sacrifice and do for your child? And I think it's most important to create like a connection through the interaction, not just like, whatever, I'll let you do it, and you kind of being like resentful or like upset because it didn't go your way. But instead, how can I create a deeper connection, a deeper understanding, and strengthen my relationship through this interaction.
Right, right. And getting to the why, I think, is really important. So, Maria, I'm going to share just an experience I had. My oldest son, Kyle, and many of you have heard my Kyle stories. Most of you are here because of my Kyle stories. But Kyle is very task driven. So things have to be a certain way, and he has to do it a certain way. And when he was playing soccer, and you were mentioning soccer, he would come home, Maria, and he was so critical of the team. He'd come barreling through the door, and these kids aren't doing this, and these kids aren't doing that. And I just looked at him one day, and I just let him run it out, and I just said, so are you the coach? And he's like, no, I'm not the coach. And I'm like, but they're not going to listen to you, because he was bossing everybody around. And what he was doing, he was creating his own problem on the team because he was so vocal. What it came down to was Kyle just needed to do a Kyle sport. He's not a team player. He's just not, you know what I mean? So something that he could challenge himself was probably better, because now it's an internal challenge for him, because for him to interact, engage with other people. And Maria, he was just so, you talk about negative. I say Kyle was negative. He was critical of the other players, and nobody wants to be around the negative player, right? You know what I mean? They're like become the jerk on the team. So he finished that season, but then it was like, maybe he needs to do something else that's going to challenge him. Maybe it's golf. Maybe it's something that just challenged a single person sport, not a team sport, for him, because that's what was happening, Maria. So that's something to really ask, as Andrew was saying as well, get to the why. Why is it? Why is it? Kyle just felt as though the players weren't doing this and they weren't responding a certain way. And he just was just unloading all of his criticism of the team. And then when he's telling the other players, now he's creating, nobody wants to play with him either, because he's critical. And so once we finish it out, what may be a better fit for him in a different sport? So that's just something to explore a little bit more with him. But
I'd love to add. Yeah, I'd love to add something here too, and I would say the most important thing is that he understands that he's in a situation he doesn't want to be in. So that alone is he's now being accountable. He's being independent. And he's making a decision for himself. So I think taking action in a situation that you're uncomfortable is important. Running from the situation constantly might not be the best solution if you see him doing that consistently. And maybe like facing the situation. It's like, how can I communicate with my teammates? How can I be a leader so that I can start to shift my teammates and to get them to come around, right?
Great suggestion.
Yeah, and because we're constantly, right, if he has a negative attitude towards teammates, likely what we say about others is also what we're saying to ourselves internally. So if that's the case, him exercising compassion for others and also for himself is also going to be very important. The issue that comes into play, of course, as we always go back to it, is teens don't like to listen to their parents. So if you start to tell him, well, you need to have compassion for them, or you need to do this or that, likely not going to listen to you. So, that's where I really believe in. And part of me, like, I hesitate to say, because I'm like, I don't want to just have them feel like I'm selling myself on mentorship and like I need to coach your team. But I really, really, truly believe that mentorship is one of the biggest keys to helping teens develop healthily. My greatest relationships were with they weren't even like designated mentors. They were my coaches. But I can only imagine if I had a designated mentor that I weekly spoke to, for example, that was constantly helping me understand who I was, et cetera, how much more impactful that would be. Because, my coaches, I actually went over to my coach's house. I mean, they were younger. They were like 25 right out of college. But I went over to his house. I would play video games. I would talk to him. My parents were going through divorce, so like they were my mentor. So yeah, I really, truly do believe that, because I know personally I didn't listen to my parents, but I would listen to others. And that's really kind of what saved me from, what other possible things.
Because it takes the village. It really does take the village, everyone rallying around. So, and that's really what you do in being able to connect with teens and being the confidant that maybe they don't share with others, that they feel safe enough to share with you. I think you have one more tip for us. Do you still have one more tip for us?
Yeah, the last tip is actually mentorship.
Okay.
That's probably my biggest tip, is to get a mentor for your teen, because look, your teen is already prone to making impulsive behaviors, having irrational judgments, right? Due to like increased hormones and not having a fully developed frontal cortex. And I like to say you can't fight biology, and if you try, you're probably going to lose. So
Yeah.
my invitation to parents is to understand that and to act accordingly. And so, you know, like I said before, one of the most important relationships during an adolescent's human development is not the relationship with their parent, but with but with a mentor or a peer and their peers. And so there's going to take some surrender from parents. There's going to take some willingness to like be out of control, right? There's a willingness to be wrong, to be uncomfortable. And of course, when you're looking for a mentor, you want to find someone that you like, that you trust, that has values, and
Right.
definitely shop around, like ask them questions, get on a call with them, make sure you like their personality, etc. Find out what they're teaching. But I do want to read a couple. Oh no, I do want to read a couple benefits of mentorship, and this is by um, an author, Raposa, Raposa, a book written in 2019. So if you wanted to look that book up. So the benefits that they list: it helps young people interpret and manage life challenges, including relationships with peers and parents. It fosters self-efficacy, a belief in oneself, which is it's really prevalent, especially the question about gender change and identity. It strengthens self-regulation, one's ability to manage emotions and impulses and to think before acting, which is huge because this is when the prefrontal cortex is being developed. They're not really thinking before they act. They don't really have self-regulation because their hormones are shifting.
Right.
It promotes identity development, which is, again, we spoke about, which is what Eric Erickson believes is the number one question: who am I? Of what teens are trying to answer. And so it says through modeling core qualities that contribute to human thriving, like empathy, curiosity, resourcefulness, and resilience. And then last but not least, it says it opens doors to new ways of thinking, resources, and opportunity. So really, a mentor is a model, is a guide, is a support system. And on top of that, it's a way to help create accountability within teens. Because as teens, you don't ever want to do what your parents say. First of all, you don't usually ever want to do schoolwork, right? There's a lot of procrastination, and I might be projecting, but this is commonly what I hear among the teens that I work with. So a mentor, one of the biggest things that a mentor is able to do as well is to create accountability. So it's like, hey, this is, first I teach something and I give you action items and then I hold you accountable to those action items. We come back, hey, did you end up doing those? Yes, no. Oh, I did 3 out of 4. Okay, what got in the way of you completing the fourth one? And not just like, oh, because my mom asked me to do this and I was out all day. But no, going deeper and to be like, no, not the surface level stuff, right? Not blaming other people, but who were you being as a person? Did you have a fear of speaking up to your mom, right? Did you have a fear of making a request? Were you not acting courageously? And so we explore the ways of being, and then we start to ask, okay, what can you add for next time? What can you put, that situation happen again, what would you do? Oh, I would be courageous. I would be authentic. So we're exploring who they're being because the model that I use is be, do, have. When we be in a certain way, we do a certain thing and then we have a certain result. When usually we're taught the opposite, which is if I have this certain thing, if I have confidence, then I'm going to do this task, then I'm going to be happy. And it's not true.
Yeah,
So
we need to flip and reverse that. Yeah, that
absolutely.
is great. And it is when you have someone else. And I know my kids had a couple of close friends that were good kids that they felt that they could use as confidants, right? Somebody who they could share things with that was not me, right? That they felt that they felt safe to be able to do that. And the other thing I liked what you said was, it's not the surface. My coach tells me it's 7 layers deep. You got to get 7 layers deep before you get to the real why. And sometimes we just take it on the surface, or we tend to want to respond to the surface without getting deeper to the why. And I think a lot of parents do that. We do what? We react, we don't respond. And we really need to get a little bit deeper. So Maria says, thanks, this is great help. And Cassandra says, I would love a mentor or life coach for my teen, but there are none around where I live. I checked an online program, and the 3 I looked at cost thousands, and they were not in my budget. So let's talk a little bit more, because I know you do have a program, and actually you have something starting where you're offering parents an opportunity to kind of check you out even, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a full-on program. I call it Elevate Your Life. I I actually was going back and forth between Elevate Your Life and Elevate Your Game, because my niche as a business owner is teen athletes. I want to help all teens. So any of my content that you see is likely going to be geared towards teen athletes. However, everything I teach, I would teach this same concept to a 4-year-old, and I would teach to a 90-year-old. Everything is universal. Nothing is specific to, oh, you have to do this type of footwork. No, there's none of that. Everything I teach can be taught to teen athletes or teens. So I do want to preface by saying that. So I do have a full-on course. It's a 6-month course. And then the thing that I'm offering for free to all of the people listening here and listening live to the recording is I have a 30-day confidence challenge. I call it the best way to confidence. And that challenge is a 30-day challenge. What I'm giving away is a 5-day trial. So the first 5 days for free. You can go through it. I would love for your teen to obviously go through it as well. If you get lots of value from that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about the full 30-day challenge. It's a very affordable price to it. And that's sort of just an introduction to what I do. The reason why that I believe that that's not enough, but just the jump start, is because number one, 30 days, yes, can help create a habit. However, you still need that consistency, right? How many times have we done something for 30 days and then fell off? So that's where the accountability of a mentor comes into play. And number two is, trying not to lose my train of thought, but it's slipping me. Number two is, well, was the accountability. It was definitely a big piece.
Well, I think they have an opportunity to check you out. You know what I mean?
Of course, of course.
It's a great opportunity. You're not making a long-term commitment, but is this the right fit for me? And what am I learning and gaining? So I love the program, but I also love the try before you buy thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of it, is like so you get to know my teaching style, how I speak, because I'm speaking directly to the teens, right? So how I'm speaking now is essentially how I'm speaking to teens. I don't really change how I talk when I'm talking to people. I just switch my understanding of who I'm speaking with. But yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for you to check it out. As far as the $1,000 programs, one of the things that I ask my teens before that they sign up for my academy is, do you have a willingness about yourself? And it's actually one of the points that I want to speak about in this, but I know that this was my third one, but we kind of got into all this stuff, but that's okay. But it's like a willingness, right? I was talking about a willingness to be wrong, to be uncomfortable. So it's like, as a parent, are you willing to make sacrifices? And I'm not telling, listen, I don't know your finances, right? I'm not sure who asked that question, but you have to ask yourself, it's just weighing the pros and cons. Like, am I willing to put a couple $1,000s towards having possibly my kid's life transform, which is probably one of, if not the most important thing in your life? And then it's like, okay, well, if I do, but I don't have the money right now, how can I get creative? Look, before I went to Nepal, I studied in a Buddhist monastery for 4 months. I meditated 6 to 8 hours a day. And I was like, I don't think I have enough money to go there. So I started a GoFundMe. I wrote my story, and in a week and a half, I had $1,100 raised. Does that take me being vulnerable to possibly have people judge me and think that I'm, like, just want all this stuff for myself? Yeah, but then I was like, in my head, well, I know exactly what I'm going to do with all this information and knowledge. When I come back, I'm going to give it back tenfold to teens and everyone else. So, you know, and then if you don't, how can I create a way to budget? How can I cut out certain things? And, you know, I think that is a way to look at it. But that would be my short answer. There's always going to be sacrifices.
Well, you know what I'd like to do, Andrew, is I know do you have a link where people could get more information on your 30-day challenge with the 5 days free? Do you have a link to that where parents, because what we'll do when we're done here is I will post that link with the description here, so parents could actually click over and get more information on what you're doing, or even reach out to you on Facebook and send you a direct message and ask you some questions about what you do and how you do it, just so they can get some more information. Personally, I think Jen says you can't put out, I guess, Jen, we probably missed that. Here you go. If you want something bad enough, you find a way to make it happen. We all do, Jen. So that's a great point to make. And I know I've had situations where it's the investment. I'm making an investment. So it's not like money spent, it's an investment. And I know, Cassandra, you are an amazing mom, and I know how much you love your kids, and just even the transformation that has been happening as we've been working together has been amazing. So so I would say, Cassandra, check out what he has, check out what Andrew has, and see if even after that first 5 days, if that's something that'll work, and see if you guys could work out. I think that's awesome. And I know, Andrew, you and I had talked, and I know we've not solidified this, but I'm just going to put this out to those who are, alive with us now, and those who are watching replay. But we have been discussing a collaboration of doing things with the parent and the child. And so those of you who are watching, I just would, if you guys could give us some feedback if you think that that's a program that would be helpful, because there are some things that Andrew and I have talked about that we would do together with the child, and then there would be some breakout things that I'm working with parents and Andrew's working with the kids. But we are just creating a dialogue and an environment, of communication, trust, and all those things. So, and that's something that we've been kind of brainstorming over the last couple of months, that we would really like to just really even see what the need is, and if that's something that would be of interest and helpful to parents to do something with your child. But again, you have somebody who's a different generation, Andrew's working younger with your kids as that mentor, and I'm working with you as the adult as we work on that transformation. Because what I'm finding, Andrew, is that tween and teen years, everything that's happening that you talked about with the development and the self-identity, is where parents start to get tripped up on knowing how to adjust. And so that's why I really enjoy working with the parents at that stage, because we can make or break it at that crossroad, right? We can find a way that we adjust, that we allow them that opportunity to develop their self-identity and to encourage them to be the best they can be according to their design, and not feel as though we are trying to stifle them or crush them or make them into who we think they should be. We want them to bloom and blossom into the people that they were designed to be. So that's something that we are thinking about as well. And Cassandra says, yes, that would be awesome. So great. I'm glad to hear it. So Andrew, before we sign off, because gosh, this was almost an hour. I didn't think we'd go that long, but this has been really good, and I love the engagement that we've had. But do you have any last minute things that you would like to share with the parents who have joined us on this podcast?
Well, first I wanted to circle back to Cassandra and tell her everything that I said is with so much compassion. I understand where you're at financially. It's been one of the things that I've struggled with, since I've been since I've avoided a 9-to-5 job for the past 9 years. So I understand where you're at. Again, this is why I'm offering the free trial, so that you can understand how I teach. And then if you do decide to do the 30-day challenge, it's very affordable. It's less than $100. So you can start to understand, and see the results that your teen is getting. And then from there, you can decide, oh, I want to continue to get coaching and guidance from Andrew, because that's the most important thing, is that consistency, is that continued accountability. I have lots of friends that I surround myself with that hold me accountable, that hold me to my highest standard. And I even check in with my buddy every morning at 5 a.m. as a wake-up call, because as humans, we tend to we think that people are watching us, right? And it's called, what's it called? I forget the name of it. It's called social something. I was just starting to write. Oh, here it is. Social facilitation. So it's like when you have an audience or when you have somebody watching, you tend to perform better if you feel that you're capable. If you don't feel you're capable, you might get nervous, you perform less well. So how can we build up that comfortability so that they can perform even better when someone is holding them accountable? And that's just to help them create understanding and then provide the tools and techniques. And that's exactly what I do. But as far as last tips that I can give, well, one, again, I want to come back to the beginning of have compassion for yourself, do the reparenting of yourself. It's so important. Um, as much as anything that you see in your teen, reflect it back to yourself and say, where in my life am I showing up like that? And then exercise compassion to them. You are the leader, you are the mirror of them. So where in my life, can I operate in a way so that they can see? Because the more that you start to take care of yourself, self-care, these types of things, they're gonna mirror that, and they're gonna see
Feel it.
that,
That's
and they're
right.
yeah they're
That's
gonna
right.
they're gonna appreciate that. And it's that letting go, it's that detachment, it's that fear of and who knows, maybe you have a fear of abandonment, so you're scared that your kid's going to abandon you as well. So how can you go inward and release those fears of abandonment so that you can start to feel comfortable detaching, so now they feel, oh my gosh, I feel free and I can explore myself. But then where now again can I have a guide to be able to, now that they are free and independent and exploring, how can I have someone to actually guide them so that they are going in the right direction? And again, that's where I think a mentor is very helpful. But all in all, have a willingness, be open to being wrong, understand that your perspective is not the only perspective, and let go. Let go. And I know it's hard, but let go, surrender, and create that friendship with obviously you're still a parent, but start to become their friend, start to understand them, start to ask them that big question of, are you open to me supporting you? It's I learned this from my coach, and I was talking to him about my partnership that I'm in relation, and he says, and I'm like, she's always getting mad at me, and I'm like, I'm trying to help her and she never wants. He goes, but especially in an intimate relationship, usually you don't want to be coached, right? Because you can get that from, it's almost the same thing as in a romantic relationship. You don't want your partner to tell you what to do. So it's the same thing as your teen. You don't want your teen doesn't want to. So it's asking the question, it's to ask the question, do you want to be coached? Do you want me to be your best friend? Or do you want me to be your lover, right, for the relationship? So you can do the same thing with your teen. Do you want me to be your parent? Do you want me to be your best friend? Do you want me to be your coach? So that's a great question.
And how
you
can I
ask
support
them.
you? How can I support you with what you're going through?
Absolutely.
I think that's great. I think that statement in itself will bring the wall down, but I'm not trying to tell you, I'm here to help you. And when we've been directing and correcting all those years, sometimes they don't know how to respond to that. That's why I really want parents to get away from directing and correcting, because I truly believe we need connection before correction. We need to have that relationship.
One last thing I want to say is that, for example, if you're like, hey, how can I support you? And your teen says, just get away, or I don't need help. Are you able to just say, okay, and leave? Or are you going to push your agenda? And ask yourself, are you trying to relieve yourself of your uncomfortable emotions? Like, okay, if my teen says to go away, how am I going to feel when I go away? I'm going to feel like, oh crap, they don't really know what they're doing. Are they capable? Or like, I feel abandoned. And it's like, okay, are you trying to, are you not listening to them because you're trying to avoid feeling those possible sensations and emotions that might come up after? So think about that, and actually, instead of avoiding it, go into it, because like they say, the only way out is through. So experience it. You must re-experience the emotion. You must re-feel it again, and then you release the emotion, and through the breath and through intention and all of these things I teach.
And that is powerful. That is just gold, because a lot of the parents that I work with, although we may know we should do certain things, what do I do with how I feel when I feel that way? We need to then be able to process that emotion. And it is back to self-care. And even with that, when they say get away, because some of them can be angry enough to do that, you've planted the seed that they know that you are available. You do need to drop it. You do need to let it go. But what they heard is, how can I best support you through this? I don't need your help. That may sting in the moment, but what they heard is my parents are here to support me. And then it kind of brings down that wall so that we can have that fluid communication again. This has been so powerful, Andrew. I want to thank you so much for spending time and sharing your wisdom, you know, with the parents here. And this will continue to be on replay. What we're going to do is I'm going to post more information on ways that you can learn more about what Andrew does, what his program is, and especially his 30-day confidence challenge where you get your 5 days free. I mean, you can't beat that, right? So we'll put some more information on that. And if anybody has any additional questions, I'll give it, you know, another 30 seconds or so if anybody has any questions that we can answer before we sign off. And if not, you know that you can go, you know, directly to Andrew. Anybody has any questions for me, you know, you can always send me a DM. So I think it's looking good, Andrew.
Awesome.
I think we've answered
Thank
all the
you so
questions
much.
over here. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we wish you all the best. Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.